Hey guys, recently I made a video called EVE Online First Impressions where I tackled the MMO EVE Online in its free-to-play state in the current year. But EVE Online is not just a free-to-play game, in fact, primarily it is a subscription-based game. But I found that there is honestly very lackluster information out there, especially on their website and even in-game, on what an alpha clone and an omega clone can do, and that in order is free-to-play and pay-to-play player can do, and what the real differences between them are. So after now over a month of playing, almost 2 months now, month and a half, I've pretty much think I'm getting close to the alpha limit, so I think I'm ready to examine the differences between the two. So let's look over the whole list as I found it to figure out, is upgrading to Omega worth it? Should you start as an Omega player? Or is this a game that you can actually play free to play? Let's start with the basics. The ships in the game. Free-to-play players have access to a lot of ships, more ships than when the program initially released, in fact. You can access anything from frigates to battleships, assuming it's Tech 1. Tech levels are essentially specialties with bonuses. Obviously, Tech 2 and 3 will be better than Tech 1 in almost every single case, but I'm sure there's little exceptions. I know one exception is definitely that they cost more. In addition to having a limit of ships, but honestly good enough variety of them, your modules for your ships are limited mostly to Tech 1, but also there's just some things you can't use in general. For example, alphas cannot cloak. Now this could be a huge thing in PvP or when you're doing exploration in more dangerous places. Cloaking can save your life, and as a free-to-play player, you can't use any form of cloaking. I don't think most players would actually need to cloak, but it's good to kind of note this. Alphas cannot use Triglavian ships. Now what that means is there's an invasion going on. It's part of the EVE storyline. These aliens have come to attack our space, and we can use their ships as we capture them. Or, well, we get the blueprints and we make them, essentially. But alphas cannot use these ships of any kind, only omegas. And a good thing to note is that the bigger you go in a ship as an alpha, honestly, from what I found, the less quote-unquote good modules you have available to you. You have a fuck ton of choice in frigates and, cruisers, destroyers, even battle cruisers to some extent, but around battle cruisers and battleships, there are just more and more modules that you cannot use as a free-to-play player. This means the fitting of your ship will just always be objectively worse than a pay-to-play player, especially the bigger you go. Skill points are one of the most important things in EVE Online, arguably the most important. They were the reason why people would subscribe to the game and then go play something else for like a year and just leave their character training skills. Skills allow you to do everything and they allow you to do anything better. And one thing worth noting is that alpha clones, free-to-play players, only have half the training speed of pay-to-play players. Now they advertise this as, subscribe and you'll get twice the training speed, but no, it's not 2 times. It's halved. Your training speed is atrociously slow as an alpha. And it's not just limited in terms of speed either. You have some caps. For example, there are a lot of skills that only subscription players can even use, and in most cases you cannot max any skill out. Only pay-to-play players can do that. You can only get skills up to like level 3, level 4, level 2, etc. This gets worse the more advanced skills you go for. You have about 20.5 million skill points worth of skills that you can train, and you have 2 options to train them as a free-to-play player. Just the base skill queue, which is halved speed, and alpha injectors, which is like you purchase 50,000 skill points, you inject 1 a day, and that's how you do it. You can purchase that in-game or from their website. It's a way of monetizing free-to-play players, essentially. And these alpha injectors are actually really important because once you train 5 million skill points, your training queue just shuts off. You can't even use it anymore as an alpha clone. You would have to use alpha injectors to train any further, or finally get omega, which you can purchase in-game, let me remind you. In addition to that, in your training skill queue, you can only have a 24-hour limit on skills. And now what that means is you can only queue up skills that start within the next 24 hours. You could cheese that a little and set up like 20 skills that take like about 30 minutes or whatever to finish, and then at the very end, in the last like whatever 30 minutes of the queue, you put one that takes like 9 days. And yes, there are skills that take days, weeks, months. So with all the information that I've presented so far, there's a really important thing we can figure out. In every instance in this game, except one, honestly, alpha clones are limited in just to be worse than their omega counterparts in every single activity in the game. There's only one where that is not true, and that is in Project Discovery, which is a little mini game which is alright to helping you earn some money on the side if you enjoy it. It's kind of complex and not really something most people would look for in a game though, so it's not really something you could score as a win for free-to-play players. Because free-to-play brings bots, passive money making in EVE Online is also very, very limited for free-to-play players. If you like mining, well, you're probably just going to want to start with a subscription, because you only get one mining ship. You get the worst mining ship in the entire game. That is all you can get as an alpha player. And honestly, it sucks. I've tried it. It's terrible. I can enjoy mining, but I would never try to main mining in any way with this shitty-ass ship. If you like crafting, well, unfortunately for you, you have very limited industry slots and extra industry taxes at, I believe, any station you go to, just because you're a free-to-play player. There's a system in the game known as planetary production, or known as PP for short. This is basically, you set up a colony on a planet, you have it produce resources, you export the resources, and now you can sell them. And it's really minimal investment, and it produces money for you even while you're offline. Naturally, that is not even allowed to free-to-play players in the slightest. Omega, or pay-to-play players, can make hundreds of millions, like billions even off it, I believe. So that is something they're not going to let us touch. If you like trading, well, another loss here, that you only have 17 market orders that you can post at any one time. Remember, EVE works very much like a free economy. You put up your sales to the prices you want, but it might take time for them to sell. And if you can only put up 17 things, you're extremely limited, especially since Omega clones can put up, I believe, well over 100 things. Maybe hundreds. When trading, alphas can also only trade within the station that they are in, whereas Omegas can upgrade their skills to trade pretty much anywhere around the region that they are in, or high security space in general. There's another way to sell items in the game known as contracts. You can contract things out to people, but Omegas only get one active contract at any time, so that's another unfortunate limitation. Alphas can also only have one client running at once. Even if you have an Omega account, you cannot run it alongside an Alpha account. If there is an Alpha account running on your system, then you cannot launch any other instance of EVE at all. Whenever there's events, Alphas receive basically only a fraction of the things that Omegas get in that time. Sometimes things are just given out by CCP for, I'll say no reason, but there's a reason. But they only give these things out to Omegas, like free ships, skins, etc. Alphas don't really get anything because, well, they're not paying to play. A big portion of PvE content is known as missions, and in EVE, as a alpha player, you cannot accept level 4 or level 5 missions. Now, level 4 missions are pretty much considered by the community to be the most, relaxed and one of the easiest, most brain-dead money-making methods, in the game. It's good to make a lot of money, and it would especially be good, it was especially good, to earn your first month of playtime if you just spam ran them. But because of that, and because bots were exploiting this fact, alphas can no longer accept level 4 missions, and level 3 missions only give you a fraction of the rewards of level 4s. There is also a system known as jump clones in the game. These allow you to basically place another you somewhere else and then teleport to it every now and again so that you don't have to fly all over the place to go play with your friend or whatever. Alphas can only have one of these at any one time, which basically means they can only bounce back and forth between 2 points, whereas Omegas can have half a dozen or more, I think, maybe a dozen, and can use them a lot more often. So I think you're getting the gist of it so far. Alphas have a lot of limitations under their belts for how they can play the game. Excessively, in fact. And with the amount of free skill points that are given away just randomly by CCP, you might actually find yourself hitting that 5 million wall pretty quickly. It's time for my opinion. Free to play. Is it worth it? I'd say free to play is worth it if you don't want to commit and invest money immediately. You can still do a lot of things as a free-to-play player, and there are a bunch of very welcoming communities to free-to-play players that will help you out, teach you the game, and you'll have plenty of time to learn everything before having to pay a cent. Not to mention you can earn your subscription in-game, and it's really honestly not that hard. I would argue that it's even easier to earn your subscription here than it is in RuneScape. There are people that basically exclusively play as a free-to-play player and they find that interesting. I personally do not. I think Omega is definitely the way to play this game, and that should be your goal eventually. Would I recommend starting out as Omega? Honestly, if you feel like spending money, if paying for a game is not outside your realm of capability, yeah, I would definitely start with Omega if I was you. You would just have a much better experience all around. You'd be able to get into everything a lot faster. You wouldn't have any restrictions at all from the get-go. But as someone that doesn't necessarily want to invest money, at least not away, free to play, definitely worth it. Again, I love this game. It's a lot of fun. There are countless things for you to do, and they're constantly adding more things and developing storylines as we go along. And there's a ton of welcoming communities as well. And that's basically what I think. If you plan on playing EVE Online anytime soon, maybe starting out with a new alpha account or just jumping right into Omega, you might want to use my referral link, as simply by using it you will get 1 million free skill points. Even long-term players would honestly jump at the ability to get an easy million skill points. That is basically a month of subscription-based training. If you're a free-to-play player, that's 2 months of training time right there, just skipped. So you can find my referral link in the description below. If you feel like joining me in EVE, then look up Resoula Rain in-game. I might put that text on the screen somewhere. Or join our community server in the description below as well. It's a little Overtone link. I'll mark it as Overtone Community Server. And yeah, basically just thanks for watching. Hopefully this list helped you understand the differences between free-to-play and pay-to-play in EVE Online. And hopefully I'll see some of you in-game. Bye-bye!